All right, welcome everyone. Happy Saturday. Go ahead and start like we have been lately in Dandasana. If you have the brick, you can put the brick between your feet. Then with the brick between your feet, go ahead and push your big toes into the brick and observe what happens. So the big toes into the brick, so I notice that my inner quadriceps and inner thighs begin to engage. Then pull your other toes away from the big toes. And the more you do that, the muscles of the outer quadriceps and the outer hips begin to engage. You should also feel when those legs are engaged that some lift comes all the way up into the chest. Roll the shoulders back and put your fingertips back behind you and push down with your fingertips and lift up through the side ribs, all the way up into the crown of the head. Dandasana. All right. Then take your right hand on the inside of your right knee. Move your knee out to the side a little bit, and then place your hand, or the thumb, right on the big toe base joint and turn the sole of the foot up toward the ceiling. And then you have your right foot with your hand. So then move your thumb to the place between your big toe base joint and the other toe base joints, and try and turn the foot from there. And you may find you get a little bit more ability to turn that foot. Then do the same thing on the other leg. So first you can just turn, pressing the thumb on the big toe base joint, but then move the thumb over so it goes more toward the toe side, little toe side. And then there's like a little indentation between the big toe base joint and the other, let's say the second toe base joint. So put your thumb there and see if that gives you a little bit more ability to turn more onto the top of the foot. It's a little tidbit I picked up recently. All right, then take your hands and move your calf flesh up toward the ceiling as well. Take your hands and do that on both sides. Then also move and externally rotate your thigh. And then just do it on one leg though, so you can really feel the difference. So I've really turned, it'll be your right leg. But when I do that, I can actually feel, wow, that outer hip has gone in a little bit more and the sitting bone has gone in, and I feel a little taller on the right side of my body. So having observed that, I say, well, I don't want to leave the left side behind, so I'm going to do the other side. Then I'm going to turn my feet once more. And then just observe that effect. So when I get my legs all organized, I feel this nice firmness come into the outer hips. Lengthen up through your side ribs. And lately I've been thinking of that lengthening up because I want to get more awareness into the back body, not just like a string or just from the sides, but I'm also actually envisioning like my torso is like a column. Okay? And so the whole torso lifts up, the front of the torso, the sides of the torso, the back, so you can get your awareness to go more into your back body. And roll your shoulder bones back. Bring your shoulder blades closer together on your back, away from your neck and into the center of the body and up a little bit so you can feel your chest get nice, lifted and broad. And close your eyes and fold your palms together to heart. And just don't press the palms against each other, but actually use the palms and the forearms to get even more lift. You can put your thumb right in your sternum, your forearms right at your rib cage and lift up. And I've been noticing when I do that, that actually helps my trapezius muscles release away from the neck. Now turn your awareness to your breath. And as you inhale, make yourself taller from the tailbone all the way through the head. Again, try on that inhalation, not just to think of the central channel, but imagine that the breath is moving in 3 dimensions. Up, out, and also back. So that you circulate the prana of the breath more fully through the body. And keeping that inner spaciousness from the inhalation, exhale. And let your exhalation draw your mind from the outer world toward that inner world. The inner landscape of you, the domain of yoga. Use your exhalations, take your awareness there. As you cultivate this ongoing practice of watching the inhalation and watching the exhalation, You'll also notice that there's a pause between each part of the breath. Let the mind take on the qualities of that pause so that the mind becomes more serene, more sattvic, more still. And then from that still place within, let's chant 3 Oms together. Follow that sound with your mind. Follow the reverberation of the sound with your mind. And from that space, inhale once more. Keep your chest well lifted and broad as you bring your chin down to your chest and your hands down to your thighs with your palms up. And then raise your head and open your eyes. Go ahead and stretch your arms out in front of you into Urdhva Hastasana and reach your arms all the way up. Turn your tricep from the outside in. In fact, you can take your hand, and a lot of times, we just turn the tricep holding onto the middle part of the arm, but take your hand and put it actually down near your armpit and turn that arm from the inside out and feel how the humerus bone draws in more. Then work your way up your arm to your elbow. And each progressive turn, I did 3 of them. I did down near the armpit, middle of the arm, and then right at the elbow. Each one of those actually helps me turn the arm a little bit more, kind of like doing the external rotation of the legs with the hands. Then reach your other arm up. Again, go down. Normally we just grab in the middle. It works, but actually grab down near your armpit and turn. Then go up to the middle of the upper arm and turn. And then go right near your elbow and turn. And you should feel each of those affect the rotation of the arm bone and the socket a little bit more. Then reach both arms up and then push the hands down into the air element. Bring your fingertips back behind you and lift up into the armpits and roll your shoulders back. And do your shoulder blade actions as well. All right, stretch your arms out again and interlace your fingers. Turn your palms toward me. Press the tops of the feet down and energetically lift those ankles up so you feel that firmness come into the outer hips and a lift come into the chest. Extend from your elbows through your elbows through your wrist bones, and reach up into Urdhva Baddha Gulyasana. Keep turning the upper arms like you had additional hands that could still turn from the armpit, from the middle of the arm, and then right near the elbow, and then lift up. And then bring your hands down. Notice which finger you have on top, and switch the grip of your fingers, and turn your palms out toward me. Even here, imagine that your arm bones are being turned by 2 additional sets of hands. Press the feet down and energetically lift those ankles up so you feel the firmness come into the outer hips. Lengthen up through the side ribs and extend from the elbows through the wrist bones. Then reach your arms all the way up. And then imagine you had another hand where you could keep turning that upper arm, working from the armpit through the middle of the arm to the elbow turn. There we go. Good. And then release and come down. Then go into Urdhva Hastasana again, just upward hand pose. And just observe how much easier it is to do upward hand pose having done Urdhva Baddha Gulyasana. And take your left hand, hold onto your right wrist and lift up a little bit more to get lots of nice length in the sides of the torso. Put your left hand back behind you. Now push down and lift up. And then bring your right hand to the outside of your knee. Roll the shoulder bone back. And then exhale, turn and rotate. And as you're rotating, that's helpful for me to imagine the column again, because I actually want to turn not just from the front body, not just from the back body, but from both. Okay, so from the back body perspective, I'm turning my lower back, my rib cage, my shoulder blades. From the front body perspective, I'm turning from the lower abdomen, from the front of my rib cage, and across the collarbones. As you inhale, create that length, and then as you exhale, let the turn really happen both from the front body and from the back body. So that both sides of the torso, okay, really all sides, even the side ribs and the torso, are fully participating in the twist. One more breath, lengthen up, and then exhale, turn and rotate from your lower back, from your rib cage, from your shoulder blades, from your lower abdomen, through your ribs, through your collarbones, turn. Now when you come back to the center, push down with your hands on the blanket so you get a little bit taller as you come back to the center. And feel the difference, feel the effect of that twist on your back. And then reach your arms way, way, way up again into Urdhva Hastasana. Again, keep turning that tricep from the outside in. And reach with your right hand and get your wrist and pull up. Press the feet down and pull up more. Take your right hand and put it down behind you. Push down with your right hand and lift up through your ring finger. Keep that height, and as you exhale, turn and rotate yourself around. Lengthen up, and then as you exhale, turn. And in back, you're turning from the lower back, okay, from right to left. And the corresponding, let's say, lower part in front is the abdomen that turns from left to right. And back, you've got your rib cage moving. And then you've also got your shoulder blades. And then there's a corresponding on the front ribs and the collarbone staying nice and broad as you turn. So work with that image of both the front and the back body actively turning for 2 more rotations. So inhale, lift up. Exhale, turn and rotate. Again, the back body is participating in the twist. The front body is participating in the twist. And you'll feel your side ribs come around. Keep doing it. One more breath. Inhale, lift up. And exhale, turn and rotate. And then when you come back to the center, push down with your hands. So when you come back to the center, you don't lose any of the nice work of this twist. All right, then stretch your legs out into Dandasana. Take your brick again if you have it. If you don't, it's okay. You can just push your toes against each other. And observe how that work of the toe against the brick works more on the inner leg. And how the spread of the toes, particularly the little toe away from the other toe, gives you a little firmness that comes into the outer hip. And reach your arms up again. Use your left hand to reach your right hand up. Put your hand behind you. Use your hand to lift up. And then put your right hand on the outside of your knee. Roll your shoulder bones back. And then turn and rotate. You do push with your hands, but see if you can get more of your torso to be doing most of the work of the twist. Lift up and then exhale, turn. And observe how this twist affects the back and the spine a little bit differently. So this one I feel much more right around the rib cage. Okay. I felt more of the lower back twist when I was doing the swastikasana. And you may feel it the same, you may feel it different. The point is to observe. And then come back to the center. Check back in with your legs and make sure they're staying nice and firm, because that lift of the spine really starts with the firmness of the legs. Reach your arms up again. Turn your triceps from the outside in. Use your hand to lift up and get more length. Take your hand then back behind you and press down with your right hand and up with your left hand. Keep that height as you turn back to Urdhva Dandasana. Roll the shoulders back. Push your hands against your leg and turn and rotate. Lengthen up through the side ribs. Exhale, turn and rotate. Okay, just observe where this rotation affects the spine and the back. It's a little different. All right, and then come back to the center, pushing down with your hands and lifting up with your chest as you come all the way back. Now bring your opposite leg in for swastikasana. So take your hand on the inside of your left knee, pull the foot up, turn the foot, working both from the big toe base joint, but also, don't be afraid to experiment with where you put your big toe as you turn and rotate. All right, can y'all still see me? Okay. I don't know what happened there. It says I didn't sign out, but as long as y'all can still see me, it's okay. Okay, where were we? On swastikasana. Okay. All right, so now let's do bound thumb pose. So hook one thumb over the other thumb and pull your thumbs against each other. And then stretch your arms all the way up. Pull your thumbs against each other and stretch your fingers up toward the ceiling and try and get your elbows straighter. And turn those upper arms from the armpit, from the middle, you're near the elbow, and reach up. Remember which thumb, then switch your thumb grip. Pull your thumbs against each other, reach up through your ring fingers, and extend even more. So you can really feel the armpits opening and the back of the shoulder blade really getting a nice stretch. Then go to Urdhva Hastasana, but be sure to let your trapezius muscles release away from your neck. And then we're gonna turn again. Yeah, but this time turn your palm up and put it on the outside of your knee. And I find when I work with the palm up, I feel the twist even more. That it affects the back body, particularly it makes it a little bit easier for those back shoulder blades to get engaged in the action. It's kind of just strange how just switching from holding to opening has that much different sensation in where you feel things in your back. And then come back to the center and then do your other side. Do it with your palm up and turn and rotate. Also, you can also play with where on your thigh you want to put your arm, because, or not your arm, your hand. Because each placement of the hand on the leg also gives you a different access to where that twist affects your back. So for instance, this week I've been having some lower back pain. My neck is much better, happy to report that, but my lower back has been bugging me. And so I've really been noticing that when I turn the palm up and move my hand closer to my yoga pants, it actually makes my lower back release in a very nice way. So it's just good to observe those things, because different twists have a different effect on your back. And then if you do have back pain, you can say, oh, you know, I'm going to try and do Marichiasana 1, for instance, for my upper back, or I'm going to try and do Bharadvajasana for my lower back, Marichiasana 3 for my middle back, all those things. And it's like one of my teachers talked about building up that body of knowledge. It's kind of like you have a toolbox, right? And as you're working with any kind of craft or something, or you have a new project you want to work on, you end up acquiring more tools, right? And so your poses kind of become like that, and you can become more and more refined and specialized in how you use the yoga to help your body feel better. Not that that's the main point of yoga, but it is a very nice thing that happens along the way. All right, stretch your legs out into Dandasana again. And then, all right, bring your right leg up. Bring your right leg up into Baddha Konasana. So you're just in a Jani Shirshasana position. Okay, so when I'm sitting with my blankets regularly folded, just with this folded edge, I'll move in a second so you can see, the blankets actually keep my bent leg from going down as much as they could. So what I'm gonna do is actually make my blankets be a little bit at a diagonal, okay, toward the bent leg side. So then when I sit back down, and it feels a little bit uneven at first, but then when I bring my leg, it goes down, right? So the blanket is no longer in the way of the descent of the thigh. I still have the height, which is nice because it helps me get more length in the sides of the torso and lift in the chest, but it's not in the way of the groin descending anymore.
You like that better than just the corner pointing forward?
You can do it that way too. It has a different effect.
Okay.
When you do, that's a good question, Vicky. Yeah, when you do just a corner pointing forward, I think it talks a little bit more to the tailbone. And this one does give me a little bit more support on the outer hip while still letting the thigh descend. They're both good. And then you can also use your hand here and get a little bit more of that external rotation that we were talking about. Now we're going to turn to the bent leg side. Okay? So place your hand on your outside of your knee and turn and rotate. This is another one I really was working with this week because it gives me a nice release in my lower back. Right now your foot is in Vrikshasana position, but make your foot now go a little bit more in Swastikasana position, and your knee will go back and down a little bit more. And then turn and rotate again. And now still feel the twist in my lower back, but I feel it a little higher up as I'm turning. So closer to the lower part of the shoulder blade. Should feel pretty good. And then stretch your legs out. And then you have to turn your blanket the other way. Actually, let's go through the whole rigmarole again. Right, so in Dandasana, no big deal to have the blanket where the edge is straight because it just helps your groin descend and you lift up, right? But then when you come into this beginning of Janushirshasana, the blanket kind of pushes the knee up, right? So let's say, okay, I like the height, but I'm gonna make a diagonal. So that way, I still get some firmness in the outer hip, and we'll do the pointing straight ahead in just a second, Vicki, so we can actually feel the difference here. Right, but for me, what I feel like is the blanket is still giving me a little bit of nice support on the outer femur bone, which also helps the groin descend, but it doesn't feel like it's pushing the thigh up. Push your foot and your thigh into each other, keep the length in your spine, and then exhale, turn and rotate yourself around. And I feel this one again mostly in the lower part of the back, though I do feel it, interestingly, on this side a little higher up on my back than I did on the other side. Right. Then turn your foot, move your knee out so you're more in the classical shape of Janushirshasana, and turn again. And now I feel the twist more right in the lower part of the rib cage, a little bit closer in toward the spine. So that's one way to work with the blanket. The one that Vicki is talking about is you turn the blanket so it's in a little diagonal shape or a diamond. And then the edge of, this is not folded adequately well. Okay. This one, I would say the neatness of the fold matters a lot. Okay. But Vicki is very neat and orderly, so sure she got it right. All right. Okay, this will probably be more than I need for this one. Then you sit with the edge of the blanket. Really, what you're aiming for is the edge of the blanket actually going right to your perineum. Okay, so it's going to help you give you Mula Bandha. Okay, so you have to kind of find exactly the right place where you can really begin to feel giving you that lower leg lift. So one thing I am feeling as I'm sitting here, I'm glad we've done this experiment, is that definitely in Dandasana, my thighs are definitely going down a little bit more. I don't feel as much upward lift, but I do feel a lot of nice ridding in the thigh. So then when you bring your leg into that Baddha Konasana, particularly if you're just doing one side, okay, it works. Yeah, I like it. Okay. I actually feel in this one, now that we're doing it, the first one I felt more depth, like my groin was going down. In this one, I actually feel more length coming from the inner groin to the inner knee. Little less, the blanket isn't supporting my outer hip as much, so I have to do more of my own work of sucking the outer femur bone in, okay? All right, and then let's just try, turn and rotate again. On this bent leg side. Push your foot and your thigh against each other, lengthen up, and then turn and rotate. Just notice, again, where you feel the twist of the back. I mean, you can notice in the front too. Okay. Then move your leg out more. One thing I'm noticing with just this single leg with the one blanket is I have to work a little bit more not to tip over than I was in the other one. But yeah, I definitely feel with the perineum blanket, I definitely feel more length coming from the inner groin to the inner knee. Now push your foot down into the floor and energetically lift your ankle up, and then turn and rotate again. And now I'm getting a really nice feeling of spreading and release across my lower back. Okay. Then come back to the center. Rearrange yourself. So again, the edge of the blanket, as much as you can tolerate, it's a little bit of a strange feeling if you're not used to it, but it really should be centered right on the perineum. Okay, so that the blanket is really causing Mula Bandha, a lift, or suggesting Mula Bandha, let me put it that way. And you'll feel more lift come into the chest, and hopefully you'll feel your abdomen draw in. But I'm really not, Mula Bandha means the root lock. Okay? And I am really noticing in this way of sitting, wow, my thighs are sucked down. Okay? And then from there, I want to lift up through the inner body. Yeah, bring your leg into Baddha Konasana, the first stage of our Baddha Konasana. And feel the length. Push your foot into your thigh so you get that outer hip to release. Then lengthen up, and then turn and rotate. And observe where the turn is affecting your back. Lift up again one more time. Turn and rotate. Then turn the sole of your foot up toward the ceiling and move the knee a little further back, and you'll feel more length coming still. Push your foot down into the floor and lift your ankle up so you feel that firmness come into the outer hip, more lift come into the chest, and then turn and rotate again. Lengthen up through the side ribs, and then as you exhale, turn and rotate. Good. Then come back to the center. And now, last seated twist that we'll do is Marityasana 1. And then if you think about it, those Janu Shirshasana twists are kind of like a variation of Janu Shirshasana 3. Marityasana 3. Now my black blankets are straight. Okay. Sit back in Dandasana. And then bring your right leg up. Place your hand on actually lift up first. Make yourself long and tall. And then place your arm on the inside of your knee. But your knee has to push against your arm, and your arm has to push against your knee. And when I rotate this way, this one I really feel more at the top of the shoulder blade, and a little bit more release for the neck. Lovely pose. They're all good. But basically, we've kind of worked up the spine from the bottom up toward the top of the spine. And then stretch your leg out, and then bring the opposite leg up. Press down with your hand and lift up with your left arm so you get some nice length. Feel the groin descending as you lengthen up, and then put your hand on the inside of the knee. You might need, if you're up on a lot of height, a brick behind you. Okay, so the tendency here is to let that knee fall out wide. Okay, so you have to extend through that big toe side of the foot. Push the knee and the elbow against each other as you turn and rotate. Lift up and make length, and then exhale, turn and rotate. Good. And then come all the way back to the center. Now we're going to do a downward facing dog. After working with the twists, twists basically work the body, asymmetrically, let's say, or with alternate sides. And after a lot of twists, it's actually nice to do some symmetrical poses. Okay, so downward facing dog is a symmetrical pose. So from your elbow, extend through the thumb and the first finger. Turn your upper arms again. You can even use your one hand here. Turn up near the armpit, near the middle of the arm, and near the elbow. But don't overdo the elbow turning. And then push again through the thumb and the first finger. Turn your toes under, and then push back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. We didn't do a dog beforehand, but this is, for me, feeling like as the first dog of the day, it's feeling pretty good. I feel like my spine is already getting longer. I feel that my armpits are pretty open. And I feel that my heels are really coming nicely down to the floor. And so that gives me a kind of clue about the effect of seated twists
on the extension of the spine. Doesn't mean I can't improve my dog, I can. Okay. So I'm gonna come up onto the balls of the feet, way, way, way high. Actually come up so high, almost like you're trying to, well, the higher you come up with your heels, the more you'll see your arches of your feet get defined nicely. All right, and then roll over those balls of the feet, extend from the arches through the heels, extend from the front ankle bones back to the heels, and see if you can get your heels even more firmly back. You can even lift your toes up, and sometimes that helps get the heels down, and then let your toes relax. And then walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. Stay in Uttanasana for a little while. Lift your quadriceps, let your hamstrings lengthen. And then your back feels okay. You can hook your elbows and use that pull of the arms to get even more extension in the spine. Then bring your hands down. Bring your hands onto your pelvic bones. Roll your shoulder bones back. And then come all the way back up to Tadasana. Tadasana is also a symmetrical pose. So feel what the twist and the downward facing dog has given your first Tadasana of the day. So one thing I'm noticing is that my buttock flesh is automatically going down a little bit more than it usually does. So I don't have to tell it to go down quite as much. And I have a corresponding, a little bit more feeling of that lift from the Mula Bandha coming in and lifting the abdomen in and up. Lengthen through your side ribs and roll the shoulder bones back, and then stretch through your ring fingers here. Tadasana, mountain pose. Then reach your arms all the way up into Urdhva Hastasana. Another symmetrical pose. Then join your palms together. Try, even if you have to hook your thumbs. See, I have one thumb over the other one. That grip of the thumb helps me get my heel of my hands to press together more fully. As I've been noticing, particularly in tree pose, but I'm noticing it here too, when I can really get the heel of the hand to press against each other and lift up from there, it actually influences and affects my shoulder blades a little bit more, and it takes the upper thoracic spine in. And it's really fascinating to me. It seems like a small thing, right? You know, Urdhva Hastasana we often do, but if you really go for Urdhva Namaskarasana, it makes a difference in the opening of the armpits. It makes a difference in the opening of the chest. It makes it a little harder, but such is life. Okay, so now we have to do it on the opposite thumb cross. Okay, so I had my right thumb hooked over my left first. So now when I go up, I'm gonna have my left thumb helping to push my right thumbs a little bit more. And it's a lot more awkward for me to grip in this one. But really try and get those heels of the hands to push together, extend up through the wrist bones and the ring fingers, and try and bring your hands back behind your head. And then release and bring your arms all the way down. Okay, another symmetrical pose. Okay. And then we'll do some work with the chair. Okay. Another symmetrical pose is the first stage of Trikonasana, which is Utthita Hasta Padasana, right? So stand with your feet out wide. And it's really all the same actions of Dandasana. Move your big toes a little bit toward the center and your other toes away from the big toes, and that'll firm your legs. It's a little harder with the legs out wide to move the buttock flesh down, so you may need to actually manually do that with your hands. Lift up through the inner thighs, through the side ribs, and reach out through the arms. And turn your palms up and reach up into Urdhva Hastasana and Utthita Hasta Padasana. Press the heels down and lengthen up the ring fingers, and then reach your arms out to the sides. Draw your shoulder blades in and move your trapezius muscles away from your neck. Then place your hands on your hips and walk your feet back together.
And observe the effect of Utthita Hasta Padasana on your outer hips. And one of the 6 instructions that Mr. Iyengar gives about Tadasana is to compact the hips. And you get automatically a little bit more feeling of that compaction by doing the wide leg apart poses. I think that's one of the reasons they come so early in the book. Okay, this would work better. You know, if you know the trestlers or the horses, so they're a little taller, or like you had your kitchen cabinet. Okay. So if you're ever in the kitchen, you can actually take the opportunity to use the kitchen cabinet. If your kitchen's big enough and you actually have space on your cabinets, none of which apply to me, you could do it in a kitchen. Okay. But the idea here is when we're doing something like Utthita Hasta Padasana and the arms are out, okay, it's harder to feel a lift and lightness coming into the legs. Okay. So what we're going to do, though, is use the chair, and I'm pushing down on the chair, down that way, to get lift coming up from the pelvis, but also into the chest, okay? And then turn your legs to the right, like you're doing Utthita Hasta Padasana. Let go of the chair, and you'll feel that there's a kind of tightness that comes into the groin. But if you push on the chair, there's a little bit of lightness that comes, which makes it easier to get that external rotation. And then keep pushing on the chair as you bend your knee to come down into Virabhadrasana 2. And I can see from looking at myself that my leg is not quite parallel, or the thigh is not quite parallel. It may not happen today, but I'm going to make my leg out wide, my foot out wider. And the lower I go, there's a grip that kind of comes here. So what I'm going to try and do is push down really hard and externally rotate that bent leg so I can get some release that comes into the groin. Right. Then see about adding your arms. Vira 2. From your outer hip, extend the buttock, extend for the inner knee even more. Okay. And then come all the way up. Turn your feet. Go ahead and walk into Tadasana so you can feel the differences in the sides. Again, so on the bent leg side, I feel more awareness of the vertical extension in the body. And I feel a little bit more compaction in that outer, it's my left hip, but it would be your right hip. Okay, so that gives me a desire, let's say, to do the second side. So walk your feet out wide again. And you can even feel it here. Push down, you press into your heels and push down with your hands, and you should feel lift coming into the sides of the pelvic region and the abdominal region in general. Don't push down so much so your shoulders scrunch up, so you gotta keep an eye on that, but really use the hands and the pressure of the hands on the chair to create some lightness around the hip. Then turn into Utthita Hasta Padasana and stop pressing, and you'll feel there's a grip that for most people comes as your inner leg is trying to hold on and do so much work. So push into your feet, push down with your hands, and you'll feel a lift come, or you should, and that can actually enable you to externally rotate a little bit more. Now from your outer hip of the other side, bend the knee, and you'll feel, oh wow, a little bit of a grip comes. So I'm going to use the chair from that outer hip, press into your back outer leg, but also push down with the hands on the chair. So when you extend from your outer hip through your inner knee, you can really feel a length that comes and a depth that comes a little bit more readily. Right, then see if you can keep that and stretch your arms out into Virabhadrasana 2. And then come all the way up, turn your feet back to the center, walk your feet in, and stand into Tadasana. You might need the support of the wall for this next one. Okay. And come to the wall if you have a wall. If you don't, it's okay. If your chair doesn't have a back, also okay. But if your chair back is really, really tall, okay, you might need to turn the chair to the side or even to the front. Okay? Because what we want to do
is actually do a standing Utthita Marichyasana. So you're going to lift one leg up and put it on the chair. And then level your hips, lengthen up through your side ribs. And then just stand more or less in the first stage of Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana, or standing Marichyasana. And just feel the distribution of the weight on the standing foot. All right, and then do the same thing on the second side. I mean, for me, the foot just goes right over the back of the chair, but the idea is just to have one foot higher than the other foot. And you should feel some opening that's coming into your standing leg groin, but also a release that's coming into your bent leg groin as well, just from lifting one foot up. If you don't feel anything, I mean, I do, but let's say you're taller, we can try it again. You can put more height on the foot on the chair. Okay, so you might, so when I lift the knee up even higher, I feel more opening of the front groin of the standing leg, right? But I also feel more release and descent of the bent leg that's up here on the chair. And one of the other things I really like about just this very basic pose is I can really focus on the stability of the bottom leg and spreading my toes and the weight evenly distributed between the ball of the foot and the heel. All right, and then do the other leg. You could add twist to this and everything, but we've done a lot of twisting already today. Push into your heeling and you'll feel that opening coming into the front groin. And the height, you could even make your brick taller and you would feel it even more. But there's also a release that comes into the groin of the bent leg. Level your hips, lengthen up through your side ribs, and roll your shoulder bones back. Let's say just the supported first stage of Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana. All right, then bring your foot down. You can put your chair away for now. Stand in Tadasana again. And see if you can feel, in fact, a little bit of that Virabhadrasana too, or the outer hips, and a little bit of the chair work, opening the front groins a little bit more. All right, let's do Prasarada Padottanasana. And we'll work with bricks for the hands first. We're also going to do a different stage of the arms than we usually do. So when your legs are out wide, at some point I'm going to tell you to put your hands between your legs and the tops of the hands on the floor. Okay, but that's a few little things away. All right, so stand with your feet wide apart. Put the bricks down in front of you. And we really learned the Dandasana leg actions, right? Or the Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana leg actions. Spread your, move your big toes slightly in toward each other. But that's a little bit more of an energetic action at this point. And then from that, spread your other toes wide apart. Place your hands on your pelvic bones. Use your thumbs and move the buttock flesh down. And then look up toward the ceiling a little bit first, and you'll feel that same opening coming into the front groin. Keep your legs strong, keep the sides of the torso long, and then fold forward and bring your hands down to your bricks. One thing I've discovered during this time of yoga confinement is the value of raising the hands in terms of really getting more of an openness in the groin in this point, in this pose. I used to just think of the bricks as really being something that we gave people who couldn't get their hands to the floor because of hamstring limitation. And I think that that's true. But what I've really noticed when I go ahead and take the bricks myself, how much more I get a release right on the inside of the pelvic bones. And then I can really extend from that pubis all the way up through the crown of the head. It's also a nice opportunity to get the three hands at the wall position working. So turn your bricks, except it's three hands on the floor, so that your fingers move away from each other. And that turn of the hand is a lot like when we used our hands in Utthita Hasta or the Hastasana to turn.
So you should feel more rotation coming into the humerus bone when your fingers are turned out. And you'll feel even more rotation if you can manage to turn your fingers the other way. If you can't, just stay in position 1 or position 2. And this really is like using your hands to turn, it's just using the hands in a different way, to turn the humerus bone. All right, then go ahead and place your hands on the floor. Check back in at your legs and make sure they're still doing their work. The concave position 1, where your hands are right underneath your shoulders. Concave position 2, you try and work your hands as far back really as you can, but you still have your arms straight. If your wrists can tolerate it, if they can't, you don't have to go that far back. But I'm finding that it's a very nice feeling in terms of the tightness in my hands. All right, then bend your elbows straight back. Move your outer elbow toward your inner elbow and put your head on the floor. And then lift up your shoulders away from your ears. Observe the nice effect that comes into the brain here. All right, now try stretching your hands back between your legs. And maybe you can wiggle your head a little in more and have the palms facing up toward the ceiling. Now, press your hands down and lift your shoulders up like you did in the first stage. Keep your shoulders well lifted and come back to Shirshasana 2. Keep your shoulders well lifted and bring your hands out to your ankles. And then come all the way back to the concave 2 to concave 1. Wiggle your feet in a little bit and then bring your hands and come all the way up. So Prasarita Padottanasana. Walk your feet in. Oh, look, both Vicky's dogs are here. Hello, Vicky's dogs. And then stand in Tadasana. Observe the very nice effect of that long stay in Prasarita Padottanasana. And I feel the outer hips moving in. I feel the lift of the inner body. And I feel my brain receding a little bit from front to back. One of my favorite poses. Okay, that is one pose that you can do instead of Shirshasana, headstand, okay? So you can always repeat that when we get to headstand. Another one that you can do instead of headstand that we're all gonna do now, is Uttanasana. You wanna get some support for the crown of the head. For me, a brick is great, but we're gonna do a particular version of it where we actually keep the hands on the elbows with the head support. It feels very nice. Yeah, there's a different opening that comes in the armpits when I do it this way. Uttanasana is also an excellent opportunity to monitor how the lift of your legs is going. You can keep your hands on the floor if you need to, but do try and experiment with what does it feel like when you bend your elbows with the crown of the head on the being supported. Usually we do the elbow bend without the head support and it lengthens the spine down, but with the head support, it opens the armpits very nicely. And switch the grip of your elbows. And then put your fingertips on the floor. Place your hands on your pelvic bones. And then come all the way up to standing for Uttanasana. Sorry, for Tadasana from Uttanasana. And just observe the effect.
I had a question, and for the Prasarit Padasana.
Uh-huh.
So when I do that pose, my tendency of the buttocks is to go behind the feet, behind the heels.
Yeah.
So where are they in relation to the heel? Are you more forward or are you more back?
It's a good question.
I would say most people, I mean, I may even myself have a tendency to do that a lot. So yeah, the tendency for a lot of people is see how my buttocks are back behind my heels here. So what I really
Yes.
want is my buttocks to be like right in line with my heels. So that's one thing that's a good question, Pratima. It's one thing that the concave stage is really good for, because it doesn't require as much on the hamstrings, so you can actually kind of sort out, is the weight of the ball of the foot and the heel kind of equal. Now I will say there's some people who kind of, particularly like when they're trying to get their head down, there's some people that lean too far forward. You see how my hips are way forward now? But most people probably overdo it this way. And when I do that, I actually feel too much strain in the top part of my hamstring. So I want to make sure it's even. Yeah. Any other questions? It's a good question. Oh, another thing that you can do, which is fun, though you do need a little bit more wall space. Okay. You can, Pratima, practice that pose with your buttocks against the wall. Okay. And then there's no way you can move back because the wall is there. And you can go pretty deep in the pose, but you'll really feel something quite different occurring in your hamstrings. Okay, so Uttanasana, that pose we just did, is another, if you're not a Shirshasana doer, is another thing that you can do when the rest of us are doing Shirshasana. Before Shirshasana, though, we're going to do downward facing Ekapada Adho Mukha Svanasana, which is lengthening the leg back while you're in downward facing dog. Okay? All right, so go ahead and come back into downward facing dog. We'll forgo the head support for right now. And get into a nice downward facing dog. Mila just sighed in approval of my downward facing dog. Then bring your feet together. Push your hands more. Extend from the armpits and the side ribs back to your legs. Then lift one leg up and reach back with that leg. Then press your hand down, and then from your shoulder blade, extend back through the heel. So you're really lengthening from the whole right side of the body. Then bring the foot down, and you'll notice, hey, I got a little taller. So you can readjust. Probably the full extension is a little bit too long for most people, and then do your second side. You can lengthen back from the leg, that works, but what if you press your hands down and lengthen back from the armpit and the shoulder blade and the leg? It's even better. Then bring your foot down. Now my head's really close to the floor, so when I make my feet go out wide, yeah, I can actually get my head down on the floor, almost. Yeah, there. Oh. Feels really good. Then again, the aim in general is not the floor. And then walk forward, place your hands on your hips, roll your shoulder bones back again, and come up. It is nice, when you can get the head to the floor, and you could actually compare the opening of the armpits of Mr. Iyengar's downward facing dog with the opening of his armpits in like Vira 1 or Vrikshasana. Very, very open. But the other reason I just bring that up about the head is, in the final pose of Adho Mukha Svanasana, the head is on the floor, and so it does mean that the head is supported. But most people can't really get to the floor without distorting some aspect of the pose, and hence they don't get the full nice soothingness of the brain that comes when you use support. And I have these two, this is about the size of a brick. But really for me, a brick is too much support underneath my head. Okay. So I might need a folded blanket or some other thing. Okay. But you want to find the support that just easily lets your head go down. Okay. When I do it with the full brick support, just because the brick is usually easier, it actually kind of jams the back of my neck a little bit. So you have to be kind of experimental and see what is exactly the right height that I need to do a nice head supported downward facing dog that I could be in for a couple of minutes. This head supported downward facing dog is in a lot of restorative sequences. It must be a good one. I mean, I know it's a good one. Yeah, so that's another option instead of Shirshasana. Okay, is head supported downward facing dog. Okay. All right. Then walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. Place your hands on your pelvic bones. Roll your shoulder bones back and come all the way up. And again, stand in Tadasana after your downward facing, after the Ekapada Adho Mukha and after the head supported Adho Mukha. And just observe. I mean, the places you could observe are where do you feel the weight on your feet? Okay. Where do you feel the effect on your hips? Where do you feel the effect on your chest? Where do you feel the effect on your brain? And maybe that feeling is not something that you can exactly put into words. So my teacher, Lori, very much asks us as a practice, or her students as a practice, to develop the ability to articulate, even if it's for yourself, what is that experience that I'm feeling? It makes you more aware of these effects. And that inquiry, or that becoming aware, is really the process of moving toward dwelling in your own true splendor, right? To experience kind of, let's say, consciousness itself. That's how Edwin Bryant, in the workshop I went to of his last week, defined dwelling in your own true splendor. He sees it more as being with consciousness itself. But there is an inner quietude that comes from that inquiry. All right, now it's time for Shirshasana, headstand. Again, if you're not doing headstand, your options are Uttanasana, Prasarita Padottanasana, or downward facing dog. Okay. If you are doing headstand, get your headstand set up now. And if you need the wall, please feel free to use the wall. You know, there are lots of reasons also not to do headstand, right? You could be on your cycle, and you could just not have been taught it yet. You could have some issues with your neck, though truthfully, headstand can actually help you sort out neck problems in a certain way. Also, glaucoma, some forms of untreated high blood pressure, particularly if you don't do those other poses first. But if you do the other poses first, it is better. Yeah, I am doing it at the wall at first, and then I'll get up and look at y'all. The reason I'm liking doing it at the wall is it gives my fingers just a little bit of support, keeps them nearer the head, and that way, when I go up, and then I'm also not, I mean, I can balance, no problem, but it just does take away any concern about balancing, or most concern. And then as a result, I have more ability to make those observations. How do I really lift my shoulders up in such a way that I don't actually create tension in my neck? Sometimes if I really overlift the shoulders, I'm actually beginning to notice that, oh, it's actually making one side of my neck kind of tight. So how can I push down with my forearms and lift the shoulders up just enough that no tension comes into the neck? And being at the wall has given me the opportunity to make those more subtle inquiries. I don't always go to the wall, but a lot of times I do. That looks good, Carolyn. That's a fine adaptation. Keep pressing your forearms down. Keep lifting your shoulders up. Turn your thighs in and extend up through the inner feet. Pratima, a little bit you're listing to the left, but not very much. Just a little bit to the right and extend more through your inner feet. Chaya, that looks like good arm action. Melinda, that's also looking pretty good. A little bit though, Melinda, your legs are listing to the right. So if you can move, particularly your lower legs, if you can move them over to the left. That looks pretty good, Karen, though maybe, I think your camera angle is actually tilted a little bit. You look straight, but the whole thing looks like it's a little bit lifted. That looks, I can see your legs, Gay, they look pretty good. Vicky, that looks right on the money. Those are just the people I can see right now. Please don't feel left out if I didn't say anything to you. Okay, now we're gonna come out of headstand and be in Adho Mukha Virasana. So keep your shoulders well lifted on the way down and come into downward facing child's pose. I know I say this every single week, but I do like to use the brick for my head, my perfect foam brick after headstand Adho Mukha Virasana. But I've also been noticing this week when I do it that I was doing it for my neck, okay? So my neck doesn't flop down after headstand. But as I was doing it this week and being more aware of having some lower back pain, I actually noticed also that this version with your head supported also gives more release for the lower back. Already, Adho Mukha Virasana is a nice pose for the lower back. And there either other way. But I just was surprised. I was doing it for one reason, but it actually has another effect that I became aware of through the ongoing inquiry of yoga practice. And then let's just do one more downward facing dog. So place your hands in front of you, come onto your hands and your knees, and get rid of the head support. In fact, look forward. Go into the pose looking forward. And then once you're back in the pose, just let your head hang, like the ripe mango fruit. And that's another nice way to release the neck from any tension that might have come from doing Shirshasana headstand. And walk forward till your feet are right underneath your hips. Place your hands on your pelvic bones. Roll your shoulder bones back. And come all the way up. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of brick Satyabandha, and then we'll do legs up the wall pose in Shavasana. I like, the vertical brick, but I am actually, for my own brick Satyabandha today, I'm actually going to use 2 bricks like this because it's a broader support for my lower back. And where I would put it is like this. Okay, so it's right on the sacrum. Okay, and it's going to feel really nice. 1 brick is just fine. You can do it horizontally, or you can do it vertically with the spine. If you have a blanket handy and you also want to roll a little bit of roll to put underneath your neck, I've also been finding that that feels very good to me these days. So I've got a little bit of neck roll support here. All right. So I can come up onto my toes, way up high, put both of my bricks down. Blanket rolls a little bit too much. So I'm going to take it out, undo a little bit of my blanket roll. Put it back underneath my neck. Might need to come out of the pose, but okay. Now I've got it also. Yeah, this is great. Yeah. So I'm really liking the broader support across the pelvic region. That helps the abdomen release as well. There's also a version where you can make the bricks go in a V, which feels nice too. Not as nice on my lower back though. And then when I've got this roll underneath my neck, the sides of my neck release a little bit more. And my brain also feels a lot softer. If you have too much underneath, it'll tip your head backward. So you want to find just the right amount of roll that fills up the space between the back of your neck and the floor. And just stay in this pose for a few more cycles of breath. Observing how the Jalandhara Bandha helps draw your mind inward. Very similar feeling to Sarvangasana. Without the work of coming up into Sarvangasana. I haven't been teaching Sarvangasana all that much either, and been doing that Brick Satyabandha and Viparita Karani instead. But anytime you would rather do a shoulder stand instead of legs up the wall pose, or you would rather maybe get a chair and do chair shoulder stand instead of Viparita Karani, you're welcome to do that. Okay. All right, so we're going to come out of Satyabandha now. So come up onto your toes, release your bricks, and lower your buttocks all the way down to the floor. And then set up for either some version of shoulder stand that you happen to know. It could be with the chair, it could be with your blankets, or set up for legs of the wall pose. One or the other. I don't want to keep those of you who like doing shoulder stand from doing shoulder stand. I would suggest, if you were working, having some lower back pain, just be flat on the floor for Viparita Karani. But if you elevate the buttocks with a bolster or with some blankets, you'll feel more lift in the chest and you'll feel more release in the groin area. And so with elevation, it's more a pose that's affecting the inner body. Without elevation, it's more like a spinal support. Both are good. Do which speaks to you. And then go ahead and come into your pose. Let your eyes release into the back of your head. Even if you're in Sarvangasana. Melinda, a little bit in Sarvangasana, you tip to the left, whereas in Shirshasana, you are tipping a little bit to the right. Yeah, that's better. Very good leg action, Uma. That also looks good. Good leg action, Karen. Marsha, that's a nice setup. I like that. You can move your thighs back a little bit more. That setup looks good, Carolyn, Gay, Chaya. Pratima, you could turn your feet in a little bit. And you might also want to work, Pratima, with putting a strap around the feet so that the legs are kind of just stay in shape and are more relaxed. But you don't have to worry about that now, just next time. Let's observe this inner quietude that comes from this whatever final inversion that you picked. If you can link that feeling to the feeling in the brain to Brick Satyabandha, it's a fun thing to do. All right. And then keeping this inner quietude that has hopefully bubbled forth for you, as much as you can, come into Shavasana. In Shavasana of your choice. I was saying throughout class, observing the effect. I mean, that's how we build up this viveka. But it also, when you have that ability to look, you're also going to be able to discern what are the signals that my body is giving me about what Shavasana would be best to do. So you just pick one. So, if you pick one and it turns out not to feel that great, you can pick another one. Let your eyes release into the back of your head. Let your tongue release away from the roof of your mouth. Unclench your jaw. Let the back of the throat release. Let the sides of the throat release. Let the base of the throat release. Let your ears draw inward. Completely relax the features of your face. Become quiet within. Patanjali defines yoga as the practice of stilling the fluctuations of the mind. When that happens, we come to dwell in that space of our own true splendor. To see, or actually be, who we essentially are. From the seat of your true self, from the space of your own true splendor, inhale. Consciously use your inhalations to bring that awareness of your true self with you as you go about your work in the world. Place your hands on your ribcage, bend your knees, roll over to your right side and take a couple breaths there. And then use your hands to press yourself back up. Sit up straight and tall, lift your chest well, close your eyes and fold your palms together at your heart. One last time, observe. Observe the effect that your practice has on you. Observe it on every layer of your being, from the physical to the most deeply spiritual. In gratitude, the benefit you receive from your practice of yoga. In gratitude to the people I have the opportunity to learn and study and practice yoga with. And in gratitude to the lineage of Hatha Yoga itself, as practiced by BKS Iyengar, reaching back to the sages of India and down through a line of teachers and students to you, here and that, in Austin, Texas, or wherever you happen to be in the world, through the miracle of Zoom. Namaste.